Welcome to Be the Wellness Podcast, where we help you master your body, mind, and the experience of life through insightful conversation, interviews with experts and thought leaders, all with a side of marital banter and some good old-fashioned humor.
Yes, we are your hosts, Adam and Vanessa Lambert, and we're committed to helping you live life fully expressed physically, mentally, and experientially. Sit back, grab a cup of coffee, and join the conversation.
Welcome, everybody, to Be the Wellness Podcast. Adam and Vanessa Lambert back at you with another fantastic podcast.
Absolutely, if we do say so ourselves.
Yeah. Well, this one's extra good.
It is extra good because this podcast was really just a byproduct of synchronicity, of law of attraction, of all of those hippie, awesome, good, yummy things that I love talking about. And I think it really was. I mean, we'll talk about this a little bit in the podcast, but we were literally sitting in the backyard hanging out with Josh Trent, who was on our podcast, right?
Yeah.
He'd actually just recorded a podcast with us. And the next thing I know, he is getting texted by Amy Killen, who's also been on the podcast and we love. And Amy's a dear friend and just an awesome all-around radical person.
Yeah.
And the next thing we know, she shows up with her friend Kyle, who Sara, our guest today, will refer to. And, you know, we all just were hanging out, chatting. And the next thing we know, Kyle's telling us about this awesome project he's part of. And the next day, this camera crew shows up and we're being interviewed about what we do and how we do it and why we do it and all this good stuff by this really lovely, amazing person who is our guest today. And her name is Sara Sheehan.
Yeah. And she'll talk quite a bit about the project, but it's awesome. The whole story is cool. What they're doing is cool. And we're like stoked to be part of it. Just to be included. And we're like, oh, all right, what's going on? And then we like see the sizzle reel of all the other people that are on there. And we're like, whoa, wow.
This is
awesome.
Pretty awesome.
Yeah.
But it really speaks to kind of the kismet and the energy of this project. And I think that the way that it happened for us was just a really good indication of what the project is all about. And we talk about this even in the interview of them just kind of following the path that is unfolded for them and following the next lead or the next, spark, if you will. And so in the end, they have this amazing program, this transformation program that includes tons of awesome interviews from just really incredible people from all around the country in their own right, doing their own really remarkable work. And so
including us,
which is so cool. We were really honored to be a part of it. And so we're excited for you guys to hear more about that project and how you can get involved and how you can be a part of it. And we're also excited for you guys to decide what Be the Wellness trip and adventure you would like to participate in 2020.
Yeah.
Yes.
Specifically Peru, New Zealand.
Yes. Which one of those is for you?
Which one of those is for you? Yeah.
Because that's what's up.
Yeah, they are epic adventures, both of them.
Yes.
And they both have a few spaces.
They do, yeah.
And we're getting into the time of year where the people who can't plan a year in advance are starting to filter in.
Exactly,
and so this is just what we see. Stuff starts to fill right up once that, there's always like the early crowd who's like, I need at least a year. I can't plan anything, which we kind of fall into that category often.
Totally.
And then there's like a lull in the middle where it's kind of in between land. And now we're back into the people that
we're in the 6 month land.
They're in the 6 month land. Yep. Where they're like, oh, perfect.
Yeah. I know what I'm doing now. Yeah, exactly. And so, we just really encourage you guys, if you haven't been to either of those places and they're bucket list experiences that you're looking to do, come join us.
Yeah.
They are really, really special, remarkable experiences in their own right, both different, but both action-packed and just really beautiful experiences. And, the best part of it is you don't have to do anything but show up.
It's true.
I mean, I wish I could go on a vacation where I got to do that. I want to go on one of our retreats.
But who would organize it?
I know.
Yeah.
So anyhow, we hope that you guys will take advantage of those last couple spots in each of those events and come join us because we'd love to have you.
Yeah, it'll be awesome.
Yes.
That's the guarantee.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesomeness.
And without further ado, let's just hop into our podcast and chat with Sara.
And we're live. Welcome to the podcast, Sara.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for being here. We're excited to reconnect once again.
Yes, I know. The last time I saw you guys was in your beautiful home.
Well, and it was so funny because, you know, as things happen often in LA, we were just hanging out at our house, had some friends over, and the next thing we know, you guys show up and we're on some series, we're filming, we're doing this wonderful interview with you, and we're kind of like, what just happened?
I know. Welcome to my world.
Yeah. So that's actually a perfect place to tee off. Give us a little bit of background. Obviously, you're an amazing interviewer. We had the privilege of sitting down and sharing just a really intimate and beautiful conversation with you. And I want to really just hover on that for a second because your interview style and skills and just the way that you pull people in was really something to behold. And, you know, as podcasters, as people who talk to people, so to speak, it was really such a joy to sit and be tangled in your web of words.
Oh my gosh, that is so beautiful. Thank you so much. Well, I thank you. That's an awesome compliment. I appreciate that.
Yeah, no. Please accept that full-heartedly because I really, you know, we had a chance because you actually did 2 interviews in our house that day. The first one was with our friend Josh Trent, who's been on the podcast before and folks know who he is. And it was really in that moment we got to kind of just watch the lights dim down and, you know, we sort of shut all the doors and windows and just there was this really sacred space set and just watched you do your magic and, you know, then had a chance to experience it ourselves. But my question is, I am getting to one eventually. So we had a bit of technical difficulty there, but I'm just going to pop right back in and just go straight to my question, which is, how did you become this amazing storyteller, interviewer, and filmmaker?
Oh, well, thank you first for the compliment. And
of course.
So I work with my husband, director Bobby Sheehan. I've been a producer for a long time. I won't say how long, but a long time. And in my capacity, in my work capacity, I get to travel literally all over the world and meet people and talk to them and get information from them. But my favorite part of meeting people and interviewing them is getting to know them. What makes them tick? What, you know, trials have they been through? How did they overcome them? That to me is so fascinating because I think the thing that our greatest currency as human beings is each other. And we have so much to learn from one another. And so oftentimes, you know, the cameras stop rolling and I just want to know more about the person that I'm interviewing. And really everybody has a wonderful story. And so the sort of the skill set to which you are referring really is I'm just interested. I mean, I met the two of you and I'm like, wow, what a dynamic couple, you know, what an attractive dynamic couple. These are people who have dedicated their career and really their life to helping people realize their dreams. What made them want to do that? What makes them tick? Why is a person so generous? How do you help people? So all of those questions that really are of interest to me, I guess, are of interest to other people as well. So we decided over a career of interviewing all kinds of people, mainly in health and wellness, we really wanted to gather all that wisdom together and kind of distill it down into a series where we felt we could really help people. And my partners and I, Dr. Kyle Berquist and Will Hinkson and my husband, Bobby Sheehan, came up with this program where we distilled all of the wisdom from people like you and people like J.J. Virgin and Mark Hyman and J.P. Sears and the late Sean Stevenson. And we came up with a 90-day transformation program called the wakeuptransformation.com. And it's really it's distilling all this wisdom from people about what works, what brings you a little bit more happiness, what makes you content, how do you reconnect with yourself? And, you know, the first step really is kind of that self-love, which is what you're offering people with these amazing adventures that you do.
Well, thank you. We do aim to bring out the love. That is a goal numero uno for sure.
Right.
But I'm thinking about all of these wonderful people that you've interviewed, and you just rattled off really a laundry list of who's who in the wellness industry. And when we got the trailer, it was really funny because, again, we didn't really know what we were interviewing for. It was, again, this sort of flow state. A friend says, you should do this. And you guys showed up, and we're, the next thing, the lights and the cameras are on. And when we got the sizzle reel, I'm like, oh, wow.
Look at that.
Should we belong
we seem
here?
really cool now. And so my question for you, though, is, having the opportunity to interview all of these amazing people who have really dedicated their lives to making a difference for people. What are some of the common denominators? And you mentioned self-love. And of course, that's one of the first that we all talk about. But what are some of the other common denominators that you really started to see come forth from all of these interviews?
Well, what we sort of broke it down into 3 steps that, in order to help the world, first you have to help yourself, right? So you have to start with that self-love, and that involves self-care. And self-care takes many different forms, from meditation to drinking more water to just moving your body, to sort of checking in with yourself. And then we realized, okay, the second step is going to be to look sort of into your immediate circle, your relationship with those around you, your partner, your friends, your community. And then the third step, which is something that all the people we interviewed have in common, including you guys, is how do you sort of find your purpose? How do you contribute to the greater good of the planet? Because as you guys know, giving feels so good. So,
Yes.
In our 90-day program, we kind of break down all these steps, step by step. We actually take people by the hand. They get input every single day. They get 90 emails from us. And we help guide them through this journey, which starts with within, and then looking around you, and then looking into the greater world.
That's an awesome situation. I mean, I'm reminded of, the idea of dropping a pebble in a pond, right? And the concentric circles that go out, and they all have to start in the center, but then it's literally limitless how far they can radiate, and that's such a cool way of looking at it.
I can't believe you just said that, because it sort of came to me in the shower this morning. I'm like, wow, it's sort of like the concentric circles in a pond.
Yeah.
We must have been channeling each
you're
other.
onto something.
Yeah, really.
I think Adam might have been in the shower with you. I hate to break that to you.
Oh, well,
I hope that's not awkward, but
that would be lovely.
At least in the consciousness, right?
Yes, exactly. Metaphysically.
Yeah. I think that, it's so amazing that both of you are talking about that, because I think sometimes we think that, especially in this world, that it's sometimes really hard to notice if you're making a difference. You're trying to make your imprint, or you're trying to give your gift or share the thing that you feel passionate about. But sometimes it's actually really hard. It's really difficult to know, like, am I actually making a difference? Is anyone out there?
Yeah, is anyone out there?
Yeah, well, that's exactly it. And so, we have a Facebook group called Wake Up Tribe, where we're, connecting with other people. And it's just, knowing that we're trying to create a community with this program also, to me, that's going to be my chance to make a difference, because I'm personally going to connect with everybody. Answering emails, answering any questions on Facebook or social media. I mean, really, I am very, very vested in this. And in addition, I am doing this program myself. So, part of how you help yourself is you help other people. And I'm taking that journey with you, because it came about really because we were thinking, well, how can we help people? But then also, how can we help ourselves? Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, we can be in the search for, self-improvement or, inner change or even outer change. But the real changes do often come when we turn to exchange or to push forward that information. And it helps us to actually embody the practices or the ideology or what have you, even more deeply. And so I think it's such an important part of the journey is to eventually become become the teacher, right? You take in that information, you're absorbing it, but eventually to really become a master, to really be in the process of it, you must pay it forward as a teacher. And it sounds like that's what you're doing. However, meanwhile, you still are the student for life, right? We're always gathering more information and more, refinement, so to speak, in our own practice. And I'm curious for you, what were some of the things that got you started in this realm? I mean, did you come to it from more of a mindfulness? Did you come to it just as a filmmaker and then your curiosity? Because obviously you've been telling stories and making film in this industry for some time, but what brought you into it in the first place?
Well, really, for me, starting being a filmmaker was really, truly just an interest in other people. I mean, just really being fascinated with what makes people tick. And then also, I think a certain amount of empathy as well. We work for a lot of nonprofits. We've done a lot of documentaries on different people and just trying to shine a light on remarkable people who are doing incredible things. But me personally, I always kind of had my own kind of spiritual practice. And once you're very embedded, once that becomes a part of like your DNA, it's hard not to bring that to absolutely everything that you do. So, the interviews generally, get kind of intense sometimes. And it comes for me anyway, it really truly comes from a place of tremendous love and trying to see where the pain is and how it was resolved and how can we share that with other people? Because 9 times out of 10, somebody else is going through exactly the same thing. So, and we have so much to learn from each other. It's sort of like this world consciousness that if we can all kind of tap into this and help one another, boy, it would be such a more beautiful place, wouldn't it?
Absolutely. So I'm curious, what is that spiritual practice that really has become part of your DNA?
Well, I didn't realize I was doing this, but I've been meditating my whole life.
Lucky you.
I know. Yeah. And when somebody told me finally, oh, that's meditation, I'm like, oh, wow. I mean, I remember being a kid and thinking, gee, it's really cold out. Well, let me get control over that, and just sort of breathing through it. And that's something I've been doing for years. I've been a long time yoga practitioner. I just love it. I find also being in nature is for me, a very spiritual thing. Being connected with water in particular, nature, the forest, trees, animals. It's just that sort of gets me to that place. So it's not necessarily a divine, an organized religion of any kind, but it's just that sort of, and then of course, kindness, that to me is a spiritual practice, empathy, kindness, looking at somebody, really seeing somebody else, is kind of part of my spirituality.
I love that. You never hear someone talk about kindness as a spiritual practice, but it's really true, isn't it? It's something that, to give kindness and to cultivate a sense of compassion is probably one of the most divine gifts you share with someone in this world.
I agree. And, when I was thinking about you guys and I'm thinking about the work that you do, that's what you guys do. I mean, you listen to people, you hear their dreams, and then you make it happen for them, whatever that takes, whether they need to be conditioned, whether you're just merely putting them in a place where they can realize those dreams. That to me is empathy, kindness, spirituality. That's kind of divine in a way, no?
Yeah. When you put it that way, yeah, I mean, it really makes sense though. And I think, because there certainly are, I'm by no means an expert in Eastern philosophies, but it seems like there's some underpinnings there in kindness, and it gets tough to talk about because it's like, it becomes this, it gets talked about more as sort of selflessness to some degree, right? So you're doing something or being present for others to ease their own suffering. And then when you look at it more deeply, it's helping them to cultivate a process that eases their own suffering, right? That like reduces or eliminates that feeling. Because at the end of the day, it really is a feeling, right? The not being happy or being suffering or, just kind of in a bad way. I mean, obviously people have circumstances that can arise from, but at the end of the day, it's an internal delineation of like, now I'm not happy. Right now I'm sad, versus I'm just okay and everything's fine. And I'm just thinking about, I think the movie or documentary maybe was called The Happiness Project. They went around and they interviewed people from all walks of life all over the place and talked to them about, what they think happiness is and how it all goes. And I was really struck by one interview they did with a guy. I think it was in India, maybe Sri Lanka, where he was a rickshaw guy, so he just toted people around in his little rickshaw all the time. And like, hands down, of all the people that they interviewed, he was the happiest guy. He was pumped on everything, and he's like, oh, but today it didn't rain. He didn't have shoes, and so he's like doing this all barefoot. And he's like, well, look, the roads are dry and this is amazing, and I was just like, my God, we could learn so much from that. Like, how do you just have that in your life?
Right.
And it sounds to me like the practice that you didn't know you were doing is helping you with that. And I think that's incredible because it just like those concentric circles, right? It just radiates out.
Well, true. Another thing that I have always done that I didn't know was a practice until somebody told me, again, even as a little kid, I would get into bed at night and I'd be like, okay, the sheets are clean. My pillow smells good. I'm warm and safe. My parents love me. And what I didn't realize was that was a daily gratitude practice, which I had been and continue to practice every single day. And, sometimes that list is really short. Sometimes it's really long. But that rickshaw guy, he had it down, right? He was living in the moment and he was practicing gratitude. Right now, I'm happy. It's not raining. Right now, I'm happy. I got a tip right now. And I think that's part of certainly what we're trying to do in our program. But one of those things that unifies all of these people who we interviewed is they all do that. They all have a gratitude practice. They all have a meditation practice. So these are things that we incorporated that seem to really work for the experts and for rickshaw drivers.
It's for everybody. So one of the things that, is commonplace these days and people are really talking about is the fact that, more of so religion itself is starting to see a decline. Less people are involved with more of the traditional religions, but there is an uptick in folks who consider themselves spiritual. And I'm curious, with this program, one of the things I think that religion did really well is it gave people structure. It gave them like, okay, if I do X, Y, and Z, I can expect this kind of results. If I pray every night, I can expect that God is going to protect me and that, I'm going to have a good day tomorrow or what, that's a simplified version, obviously. But I'm curious if this program is meant to try to give some of that structure to this emergence in spirituality and this feeling that people have, but don't really know how to like structure it into their lives.
You hit the nail on the head. Clearly we were all in the shower this morning.
We were.
but that's exactly it. And I think part of what made religion so popular, especially in the past, was it was community. You knew you were going to church on Sunday. You knew that if somebody's house burned down, everybody in that congregation was coming over with clothing and food. We've lost a lot of that. We're very isolated now. Some of that is, technology, the internet, that we can all sort of exist from our offices and be fine. But we need one another. We need connection. We need that sense of community, and community in some ways is like spirituality because people listen to you, people help you. And so maybe you're not praying to God, but maybe you're sort of checking in with yourself and seeing how you're doing and how you can help somebody else. And that creates a tribe, that creates a community. And in some ways, yes, I think that does kind of replace religion. Although, funny story from our series, we were interviewing this guy who has mapped every single church, temple, shrine, religious organization in New York City. And there have never been more places of worship in New York in the 5 boroughs than ever before in history, because I thought for sure, religion is taking a nosedive, and I guess it is. But these places have just proliferated in New York. There's a huge amount of them. Anyway, that interview is part of the series as well.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So that, I mean, I imagine that really speaks to your first point about religion and that community, and especially in-person community, and it's like, so now there's just more of them, right? You get more, more of a choice in what sort of denomination, or lack of a better term. But because that in-person contact, I mean, because our business is largely distance and remote coaching, with the exception of our retreats, we see it all the time. Just the level of loneliness and sort of disconnectedness, or isolation, I guess the way you said it is the right word. Right. It's rampant, I mean, and people, some people do better with it than others, but I think some of that's coping mechanism and just like, oh, I'm fine by myself. But the reality is, people just really need that in-person contact, even if they're not actually interacting, just to be around other people who are focused on the same thing. Right. It's so important.
I agree. We need each other. I think we're all put here for a reason. We're all put here because we need to sort of be together. We need to learn from each other. We need to support each other. And so, and that's certainly what we're trying to do when we create this community with the Wake Up Transformation, just trying to get everybody together to help each other.
Yeah. I love that. So, obviously it's an online program, and, we're always grappling with this ourselves. As Adam mentioned, most of our programs are online. And I'm curious if you have an idea about how you will create and cultivate that feeling of connection, even though obviously this is an online program. Is that, through the Facebook group, or are there ways for these people to meet in person? Or like, what's your bigger vision for really kind of taking that community aspect to the next level?
Well, we're starting off with the program. Eventually, we would like to create community groups. So there's nothing to say that people can't connect on Facebook and create their own community groups. One of the things that we've done with our documentaries, Bobby and I have made a lot of documentaries about various subjects. And one of the things that we've done that I love the most is we go on these sort of screening tours where we have these small screenings in different communities, and then there's a Q&A afterwards. And boy, talk about hearing stories and meeting people, and, people who are really interested in a particular topic getting together and discussing it. And so that's something that, we'd like to do down the line. Right now, we literally just launched. But yes, those are things that have been discussed and stuff that we would like to grow. But for the time being, hopefully we can do it through Facebook and Instagram and our course.
We just may have an event that you might be interested in. We could talk after the show, but that definitely sparks something in me. And I love that. It's one of the big things we really have tried to do with our retreats is get these people, that are connected online into each other's spaces, in person, really seeing each other's faces and sharing the actual energy of togetherness. So we'll have to chat about that after.
Look forward to it.
Yeah. So tell me more about the people that are involved in this project. Obviously, you rattled off some amazing folks, but really, what kind of people will we be able to learn from in this project? I know there's, JJ Virgin and some of these folks. Is it, a little bit of wellness, a little bit of spirituality? What is what does it overall encompass?
It's kind of health and wellness and whatever that means. So, it's diet, it's changing your food around, because food, as we know, is medicine. It's movement. It's, getting out there and moving. It's, spirituality of some kinds. We have very dear friends of ours, Chodo and Koshin, who run something called the New York Zen Center for Contemplative Care. They've recorded 3 guided meditations, which is available to your podcast listeners through the wakeuptransformation.com/podcast. But, they're in there as well. And those are free downloads available to anybody who's listening. So, there's some of that in there as well. People finding your passion. We have John Morrow, who's an incredibly successful blog writer. We have a little bit from all aspects of life to help to help people sort of get on the way. And, we have DMC from Run DMC.
I love that.
But talk about giving back. He has a really interesting story, which if you're part of the series, you'll see his interview, but he decided to start a summer camp for foster kids. And he has a really interesting reason behind that. And that's part of the giving thing. We have these people called Rob and Trigger Strasberg, who started something called Humble Design, where they furnish homes for people coming out of shelter living. Talk about giving back. I mean, so it's like all these people have shared their stories, and we've incorporated all of their pearls of wisdom into this program.
Yeah. And that's incredible, because I think, not only are you getting just a wide variety of interesting stories in there, but I think that really enables people to see something of themselves in the stories that are being told, and I think it's pretty common for us to hear great advice, like from somebody like Eckhart Tolle or Tolle, or
I don't know how to say his name. Tolle.
But that guy. Good. I'll just Eckhart. Yeah, we're on a first name basis.
Yeah.
But sometimes he's unrelatable. You look at what he does and what his story is, and you're like, okay, I get what you're saying, but I don't see how that relates to me, or I don't see what this would look like in my life. And it sounds to me like you've got such a nice kind of smattering of people who share essentially a common denominator that people will be able to see some part of themselves, and especially in the giving back aspect, because this is something that, we, I don't want to say we grapple with it, but it's something that we're constantly trying to figure out how we can give back more as a business, and how can we do this. And I think it's pretty common to not necessarily see the value that you may be able to bring. And so when you can see other people, like in the furniture example is a perfect one. You're like, oh, what a great way to give back. I am a plumber and I could do X or whatever, and it just triggers that thought process in people. So I think that's amazing.
Thank you. Yeah. And there are 26 interviews in the series, actually 27, because there's one with me. People like you guys. And then there's a tattoo artist, Scott Campbell, who's just an amazingly interesting guy and has so much life wisdom to share. Another guy, Brad Harrison, Josh, you guys, the Strasbergs, Mindy Niss, who is Sean Stevenson's widow, has amazing stuff to say. Alex Sharfin. I mean, the list goes on and on. One story that's really kind of interesting is that my father had died about 5 years ago, and my mother and my sister were in Florida just for a long weekend to get away, and their flight was canceled and they couldn't get to the airport, and there was all this drama. And this man was listening to them sort of working themselves up into a frenzy. And he walks up to them and he goes, "Let me drive you to the airport." They didn't know this guy from Adam. It ends up, he drove them. Lovely guy, ends up by being this guy called Ken Harris, who just wrote a book called about synchronicity, about all those coincidences in life. And he's become a dear friend of mine. So, those kinds of, but then that brings us back to kindness. He saw these 2 women who were clearly, having problems. And he just stepped in, and for some odd reason, they read the kindness in him and trusted him and got to the airport, and it was fine. So, we have a lot of amazing stories in these interviews with people.
I love it. And it seems like, just obviously even the way that we met you, there is a lot of synchronicity in this series as a whole, that you can feel that the fabric of it is almost like going from one story to the next. And I'm going to guess that you didn't even know where it all was going to go when you began. but just kind of followed the, the pieces or like the signs, so to speak, towards the next piece of it. Does that sound correct?
Well, that is exactly what happened. See, again, that was our shower conversation this morning. But we're interviewing Joe Polish, who's an old friend of ours, and he's like, "Wait, you've got to meet my friend Sean Stevenson, like right now." And we got in the car and we went over to Sean's, and then we're interviewing Alex Sharf, and he's like, "Oh, wait a minute. You've got to interview my really great friend, John Morrow." And this is an interesting story because it was New Year's Eve and we were in Austin and we had interviewed JP and, it was going to be New Year's Eve. And I made these great dinner reservations. I thought, aha, I finally get to have a romantic meal with my husband, because even though we travel and work together, we never get to like sit down and just talk. We're always just so busy.
Right.
But my New Year's Eve date ended up by being with John Morrow. And it was probably one of the most impactful interviews I've ever done. We spent like 2 hours just talking to him, and it was intense. And I left there and I went, thank you, universe. This was the New Year's Eve I needed to have. This was the way I needed to start my year. And that kind of was part of how this all happened. Just one person told one person. And again, it's synchronicity. It's showing up at your house and meeting the two of you. I mean, how special was that?
It was so cool. It was cool. Yeah, it was really one of those, I don't know exactly. It's just one of those moments where, we were talking to Kyle and he's like, "Oh yeah, we're doing this series. You want to be on it?" And you're just like, "I don't even know what you're talking about, but the answer is yes." Like I can just feel from the energy of whatever this is, we want to be a part of it. And, I think that's actually something so unique and rare, because most of these, the programs out there, most of the things that you participate in are highly curated, that folks that are creating them have a start and a destination, and it's very specific. But like what you're actually getting with this program is all of the magic of the creation and the energy of that as well. And I think that's what makes it really unique and special.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Well, we definitely felt it, doing the interviews. We're like, we don't know where this is going, but we know we're onto something. And everybody felt the same way because everybody was referring friends. And even how my partners and I all came together. Kyle Berquist, we were doing a sort of a medical documentary series, and we had a friend who was really suffering, a veteran who's really suffering. And we asked Kyle, to basically treat this guy for free. And he's like, okay. I mean, flew the guy in, put him up, treated him. And that was the start of Healing Our Heroes Foundation, which is something that's part of how we give back. And then I was working with another not-for-profit, something called Force Blue, that pairs former combat veterans with marine conservationists. And we met Will Hinkson, who is one of our partners, a former Special Forces guy, just an amazing human being. And, again, it's that synchronicity. It's boy, we're on some sort of a path here that I think is leading us in a direction for good. And just sort of kicked back and went with it. And yes, you're right. It's not like a curated thing. It's not, we're going to design it first and then bring in the supporting material. We did the supporting material first. And then like, oh, this is what everybody is saying.
I love that. I mean, it's so much more interesting, to be fair. Yeah. There's so much more magic in that.
Well, we think so. I mean, and then also, the ability to meet incredible people and highlight what they're doing and how they found their mission and purpose in life, how they connected with their self-love, how they improved their relationships. These are things we all want. These are universal wants. These are universal things that make your life better. And, it's making your life better. It's not winning the lottery. It's just improving from the inside out. And that's sometimes all you need. You don't need the fancy gym equipment necessarily. Maybe you just need to go on a hike with some people, or, you just need to connect with a neighbor. You don't necessarily need to have a fancy therapist. But
so true.
It's true.
We have the tools within ourselves and sort of around us. And we tried to design something that would implement those.
Awesome. I love it. So remind folks again where they can find it, and of course about the guided meditations, all that good stuff.
So to learn more about the series, you can go to wakeuptransformation.com. And for your free gift, which are your podcast downloads, you can go to wakeuptransformation.com/podcasts. And you'll get these guided meditations. You'll see a little bit about the program and what kinds of things we offer. You'll see some great interviews with people like you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sara. It's been such a delight, honestly. That's the correct word for me, is a delight. To just meet you and to, sit down and have you interview us. It was really a special experience for us. So thank you so much.
You are so welcome.
All right, folks. We'll see you next week. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. And that's all she wrote, folks. Hope you guys dug that. And I hope that you go and visit the website and the links down below in the show notes. It's a lot to say and then subsequently remember, but you can just scroll down and click on the link.
Oh, yeah. Show notes are what's up, people.
Yeah.
Like, you hear folks talk about that in podcasts all the time, like, oh, the show notes. But like, it's a plethora of awesome linkages.
It is. It's the place to go. And then if you scroll just past the show notes, you might see this thing that says leave a review.
Ta-da!
And that's a cool thing to do too.
We've been talking about this review thing, and we've got a new idea, a new strategy, because we're really committed to getting you guys to leave your reviews. And we know it takes something to do that. Mm-hmm. So we are going to launch a new thing where if you leave us a review, or if you share an episode, either or, and you take a screenshot of it and you email it to us at info@bethewellness.com, we are going to have a giveaway. We're going to have a contest for a giveaway of a cookbook every month. So you can enter that and get a chance to win a cookbook. And maybe we'll switch it up from cookbooks to just books that we find of interest. Mm-hmm. But we will be announcing those books in the next episode. So stay tuned. And in the meantime, send us your screenshots.
Yeah. Take a review. Snap a screenshot. Or make a review.
Take a screenshot.
Take a screenshot. Email it.
Exactly.
Super simple.
Exactly. All right, guys. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next week. Bye.